Welcome to the Overdrive Outdoors Podcast,
your source for everything outdoors.
Let's kick it into overdrive.
Overdrive Outdoors Podcast, brought to you by Predator Hunter Outdoors. Whether you are new to predator hunting or looking to upgrade your equipment, Predator Hunter Outdoors will have you hunting after the sun goes down. Carrying a full line of lights, night vision, and thermal optics, along with tripods, calls, mounting systems, and more, check them out at www.predatorhunteroutdoors.com or on Facebook at Predator Hunter Outdoors. Use promo code OVERDRIVE2021 for 20% off your order.
All right, everybody. Tonight we're here with co-host Kevin Roth for the night and Heather Iverson. How we doing tonight?
Good.
Hot. It's hot
Yeah.
and humid.
I just got back hour and a half ago from doing some scouting after work, and the mosquitoes. Like, if I didn't have a garden going right now, I would be praying for frost.
Can you use your thermocell?
Not when I'm walking,
Why not?
because I sprayed down with permethrin.
Okay.
The mosquitoes, I think, were just drinking the permethrin out of me and just having a good old party because they did not care one bit about it.
Yeah, they're bad right now.
Have you been doing a lot of like deer scouting stuff, Heather, yourself, or are you guys not big deer hunters?
No, we're not really too big on deer hunting. It's not because we don't like it. We just have so many other things going on that kind of gets pushed back.
Yeah. Now I'm being with us out at night coyote hunting a lot. Kevin, I don't know what it's been like up by you, but down here it's like the first spot we go to right at dark is the worst. And after that, it seems the mosquitoes kind of die down. But when you're out there sweating like crazy and 85 degrees walking through swamp ground, they're pretty bad out there.
Yeah,
Right?
swamp ground's the worst because of all that moisture. It's just a breeding ground for them. So
Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
you can definitely tell when you get around those type of areas too, because you'll drop down into a bottom and all of a sudden you'll just hear them.
Uh-huh.
on that daylight set I did the other day where I was sitting in the edge of the corn, once darkness started settling in, I could hear the mosquitoes in the corn. And I was thanking God for my thermocell because I could hear them, like they're just waiting for that thermocell to die and then they're going to pounce on me and drain me. But I mean, I walked out to collect those coyotes and I'm like, holy cow. As soon as I stepped away from that thermocell, they were all over me. So I like made a quick trip of it to grab the coyote and get back by the thermocell. And to me, it works great and it's a lifesaver for anything.
I feel like the mosquitoes been worse than they have been a lot in the past recent years.
So, I haven't seen that around here.
Oh, I've gotten to the point where I'm hooking my thermocell to the collar of my shirt right on my back because I'm tired of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just awful. They're just swarming here too. It's terrible.
Well, Heather, why don't you tell everybody, who you are, where you're from? I mean, how'd you get into this outdoor world?
Yeah. So I am a mom of two kids. I've got a 10-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. And then I was raised here in Michigan. My dad started taking me fishing in his back on a baby carrier when I was like 10 months old or somewhere around there. And then when I was 4, he started taking me along duck and goose hunting. And then from there, I think I was 12 the first time I ever went turkey hunting, but we turkey hunt as well. So that's mostly what I grew up doing. And then after I got married and we had kids, I got my kids into mostly duck and goose hunting to start too. But now as time goes on, I've kind of developed the interest for things like foraging and trapping. And so those things were a lot of self-taught later in life.
Gotcha. So was the trapping and the foraging that you enjoy doing so much now, was that something you were brought up learning, or is that your own?
My dad trapped when he was a kid, but it's not something I grew up around at all. And the foraging too. We picked like morels during turkey season, but that was pretty much the extent of that.
So when your dad trapped when you were younger, was he doing it as a source of income?
I don't know. He was in high school when he did it, and as far as I know, they sold the pelts, but I don't know if it was like for a steady income.
So foraging, I mean, I follow you Instagram, Facebook, everything. I see you honestly picking plants and stuff that I would walk by and tell my kids, don't touch that, that's poisonous. So
Yeah.
how did you learn? I assume you had some way reading books or YouTube even. How did you learn what was available in Michigan to forage and when and where to look for it?
Yeah, so when I first started, I just made it a point like each season to pick one or two plants and really focus on learning those each season. So that way it wasn't like an overload of information. And then as the years went on, you kind of compile that all together and it ends up, being quite a lot. But books are really helpful. I've got The Forager's Guide to Wild Foods, and that's by Nicole Appellini. She was on Alone. I don't know if you've seen that show.
Oh yeah, I watched all those shows. My kids love those shows too.
Oh yeah, she was on season 2. She had like MS and she made it pretty far too, like 50 some days. But yeah, so she is big into foraging. So she has a couple really great books that I like. And then also you can get like apps on your phone. I use one called Picture This. They try to get you to pay, but if you don't use it a ton, you can get by with the free version. But basically you take a picture of a plant and it'll tell you what it is. So that's super helpful.
Is it accurate?
It is pretty accurate. You shouldn't like just use that. Get an idea and then go research just to, double and triple check. You never want to just go ahead and eat something without being really sure.
Yeah. Do you have any clue on how many actual like poisonous species of plants we have in Michigan? I mean, do you have any clue on that?
I don't have a number per se, but there are a lot of toxic plants. As far as like poisonous, just to the touch, the main ones are like poison ivy and sumac.
Yep.
I don't know about poison oak. I've never seen poison oak here, but I don't know if we have that or not.
There's probably more in the terms of dangerous fungus than there is plant life, I would assume, isn't there?
Yeah, yep. And as far as fungus goes, you can touch any kind without having to worry really. It's just you don't want to eat. But there's also a lot that have really great uses and are good eating too. So
now the stuff that you forage, what is the purpose? I mean, do you do some medicinal? Do you do just for food? Tell us a little bit about what you forage and why.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Like right now I've got St. John's wort oil going. So that's used. I mix it with an oil and that stays for like 3 weeks. And then I take the oil and melt down beeswax and make like a salve that you can use like cuts, scrapes, insect bite, things like that. So I've got a
antibiotic.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of plants I use for that. But then we also do get foods too, like dandelions. You can eat pretty much, well, you can't eat the whole plant. Yeah, other things, blackberries, wild blueberries. I'm not a big mushroom eater, so I like to find them and try to identify them, but I usually just kind of leave those because I don't really like to eat them very much. But
do you ever harvest cattails?
I haven't yet. That is on my list of things I'd like to try. You just have to be really careful because if they're like near any pollution, they're just sponges, so they'll soak that up.
Yeah.
So you just really got to be careful where you find those.
What is the use for cattails?
They're edible.
Yeah, yep. You can eat the root, the shoot, the whole plant is edible.
Like a corn dog.
Nature's corn dog.
So how about I know we see occasionally like wild onions. What's the one that's real popular? Is it leeks?
Ramps, leeks. Yep.
Ramps. Yeah, that's it. Now that's
Yep.
a member of the onion family, isn't it?
It is. Yep.
Okay, I
It's
know.
it's got a pretty like mild garlicky onion taste. It's super good. I like to use the fresh leaves of that and chop it up fine and mix it with softened butter. And then you stick that in the fridge and let it harden back up. And it's really good if you get a turkey in the spring, because that's the time to harvest them. It's really good melted over fresh turkey breast or on a steak, or we have them on potatoes, pretty much everything, anything that would taste good with butter and onions.
I know we have a bunch of them around here. It's funny because Jeremy Kennedy and I were out turkey hunting this spring, and we drove by one of these spots by where I hunt. And he's like, "Man, look at all those." And I'm like, "Look at what?" He says, "Oh, those are ramps." I'm like, "What's a ramp?" So he kind of told me the same thing you did. And they eat them and harvest them, but I've never tried them. I like the flavor of onion, but onions usually don't agree with me. But I haven't tried ramps yet.
Yep.
How about clover?
I have purple clover that I'm using to make oil with, because that's good for the skin too. But you can make like tea with clover and stuff too. You can eat it too. I haven't done that yet.
I have. When I was a kid, I used to love eating clover. It'd
Oh,
grow
yeah.
in the yard, and I'd go out and pick it and eat it.
Nice. Look at you.
Which part do you eat of clover? The
The
flower?
3 leaves.
Just the leaves.
Yep. They aren't very big, but you can pick them and snack on them, and they're actually pretty darn good, I thought.
I never heard of that. I never heard of sunflower, or not sunflower, dandelion until I saw Heather posting about that.
Yep.
And I never even had a dream that you could eat a cattail.
Yep. Cattails, ramps, dandelions. If you look in for a while they're out, you might be familiar with it, but it's a homesteading magazine, Homestead Outdoors or something like that. Quite often they put recipes in there for things that you can naturally forage, and you quite often see recipes for like dandelion tea, dandelion greens in a salad, all sorts of stuff like that. I've never tried dandelions though, but I know that a lot of people do.
Yeah, they can be a little bitter if you're not careful. So like the leaves, if you're going to eat them, you want to get them usually before they flower. Or if you use the flowers, you want to pull all the little yellow petals off. That'll help cut the bitterness a little bit.
My earliest exposure to foraging was my parents had some evergreen shrubs in the front yard. And when I was a kid, I thought the red berries on those looked really interesting, and I ate some, and I pretty much about ended up in the hospital. And I remember the taste to this day. They tasted horrible. I have no idea why I ate them, but I remember they had to induce vomiting and everything.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Now, Heather, a quick question. Do you by any chance watch a show with Gordon Ramsay called Uncharted?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yep.
Did you watch his episode up in the UP?
I did.
So tell me, do you know anything about that mushroom they harvested up there?
Chaga. Yeah, I've never personally found it. That's one that if I found it, I would probably use it because it has a lot of medicinal benefits.
Okay, I gotta stop you for a second, Heather. You would use that, but you wouldn't take a morel?
I'd eat a morel. Morels are the one mushroom that I don't mind.
I was gonna say.
The other one, everyone talks about morels. The other one I hear people talk a lot about too, which I'd like to get your take on, is hen of the woods. I hear a lot of people really like that one. I've never tried it. I couldn't even identify it. So tell us about that one.
I have tried that one myself. Sorry to cut you off there, Heather. It was
you're good.
It was very spongy when I had it, which maybe it was picked at the wrong time. It was very, very big when we picked it, but I just decided to try it. When I had it, it was really spongy.
Yeah, yep. You have to be really careful. It might have been a little older or something, but that's one I've never personally tried either, just because I'm not a big mushroom person, but a lot of people really love them. And then like right now there's chanterelles are really good. That's a pretty popular one too.
Another one I've heard of that's popular too is, believe it or not, people just refer to them as puffballs.
Oh yes,
They look almost like a golf ball.
They do, yeah. Yep. You can eat them when they're pure white. Once they start to yellow, you don't want to eat those. But,
There's a lot of those. There's a lot of the puffballs around the public land around us. And Heather, if you need cattails, I know
You know, are some good ones.
I know. Well, I don't know about the water quality of it, but
Yeah,
I got a trail camera right by them all, so I know where there's a whole bunch of them.
nice.
I'll message you about that later. So, what do you do? I'm just genuinely curious because my whole yard is full of dandelions all the time. What can you do with dandelions?
So you can make tea with them. You can make wine. You can make jelly. You can use the leaves in like a salad. If you take the roots, you can like cook those up and use to make a coffee. There's just a ton of possibilities with dandelions. You just want to make it, you're not like treating your yard with like herbicides or pesticides or things like that.
Well, yeah, I gotta look up some of these books that you look at because I personally need to learn better how to identify tree species.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can tell a white oak from a red oak only when they have leaves on the tree.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell them any other time. I've never, I can't say growing up I was ever taught really how to identify. I can tell you what a pine tree is. I tell you what an apple tree is, but I can't tell you down to a specific, you know. And that is something that being a big deer hunter, I feel is important to know. And I'm 32 years old, so I probably should know it, but that's some stuff that I'd like to learn because even the chanterelles or whatever you said earlier, those mushrooms, those are orange, aren't they?
Yes. Yep.
So
Orange.
I've probably seen them. I might have actually seen some today while out walking, but I never knew that there was a use for them.
Yeah. They're really good table fare. And there's another orange one is chicken of the woods.
Yep.
So that one is like a shelf kind of looking mushroom.
Okay. Those are off the side of like rotten trees, don't they?
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So speaking of oak trees, have either one of you ever tried acorns?
I have.
I've not.
You have, Josh?
I have, just because I knew deer liked them, and you can definitely tell a flavor difference between a red and a white oak. And they say that deer don't go to red oak because they're so sweet or so, I don't know if it's sweet or sour or like acidic in the beginning of the season, but they'll go to them at the end of the season after there's been a frost or some cold because then it kind of cuts down on that. But I mean, you can definitely tell a difference, but I mean, if I was starving, I would not be looking for acorns.
I've heard the best thing to do with them is boil them first.
I just cracked them open and took one inside. Figured I'd do it the squirrel way, if anything.
Yeah, you can like boil them, and then if you dry them, you can grind them up and make like a flour. I intended to do that, but the one time I gathered up acorns, I cut it open and there was like worm inside of it and a bunch of them. So I was like, maybe I'll hold off on this one.
I never even checked the ones I ate for worms.
The stuff that you forage, Heather, do you do any long-term storage of them? Do you do any drying or canning or anything like that of them?
I don't right now. We live kind of a unique life. We stay full time in our travel trailer in the summer, and then we rent a cottage in the winter. So with kind of moving back and forth, and we don't have a lot of storage space.
Gotcha.
But that's one reason I like foraging, because even though we don't have any kind of like stockpile, I know like if something happened and we had to live off the land, I could at least just go find food.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the definitely a big benefit of it. And I'm kind of with Josh too. I really should try and learn more about it. I mean, my limit is morel mushrooms if I can even see them. And like wild onions, I'll see those, but again, I don't like to eat them. I like the flavor and smell. I just can't do them. But I would like to learn more about that. Now, what about if I remember right, in the early spring when ferns are first starting, when they're curled, those are supposed to be really good too, correct?
Yes. Yep. Fiddleheads. You just want to make sure that they're not the kind that are like furry, or I can't remember what the best way to describe the ones that you can't eat, because there are some that you can't eat. You want the fiddleheads from an ostrich fern. And those will have like the stem is shaped kind of like celery. It's got that like U shape in it, and then it's got a brown papery covering over the circular part.
And again, that's one of those things that they say is like really good in salads and such like that.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Yep. Yeah, or cooked up with some morels and a turkey. If you get a turkey, have a whole wild meal.
So what's your favorite preparation for wild turkey?
Oh man, we like fajitas. Pretty much any way we cook regular poultry.
Okay. So here's another question for you, Heather. When you're foraging, are there like, if you're deer hunting, like Josh mentioned earlier, you look for spots where there's a lot of acorns because it's natural feed for them. Are there things that you forage that you look for animals hanging out in that area, feeding on them, that's a targeted thing that you want to forage?
I haven't really too much, no.
Okay. I didn't know if like turkeys really like a particular thing. So you're like, hey, there's a bunch of turkeys over here. There's probably, such and such.
Yep. If you fall turkey hunted, you might have a little better odds, but with spring turkey, there's just not usually a whole lot up yet.
Right.
So that's,
Okay.
I think I pretty much consider myself to be a not turkey hunter after this year. I'm just tired of it. I can't kill one. I spend way more time and money on gas than I do finding a dang turkey. So I don't know. We'll find one eventually.
It's like every spot you go to, there's someone there.
Well, yeah, being a public land guy, it's kind of one of the things we just deal with. But so what about the trapping, Heather? How did you get into? That's how I first heard of Heather Iverson. Was talking about coyotes on an informed page.
Yeah.
And Heather Iverson was there wanting to trap them in the same spots I wanted to call them. So how did you get into the trapping?
Yeah. So like I said, I was raised duck hunting. So we joined up with Michigan Duck Hunters Association. I wanted to do volunteer work. So we helped out with them with their waterfowl festival and their wood duck boxes and things like that. And they actually had a trapping program where they trapped the areas that their wood duck boxes are because raccoons are a huge nest predator. So we got together with them and they helped us get all set up. And then we started trapping where their wood duck boxes are. And we kind of carried that over. So it was just raccoons was all we started going for. But then we carried that over to the places we turkey hunt. So we're like, well, they eat turkey eggs too, just like duck eggs. So we wanted to help the areas we turkey hunt. So we went there, and from there, it kind of just kept growing. The addiction kept growing, like with most things.
And one thing for sure is there's no shortage of raccoons anymore.
Oh, there's not. Yeah, their pelts aren't really worth much. When I saw the 2021 fur prices, it was like tens of thousands of raccoons, and most of them went unsold. So that's kind of a bummer. But our main reason for trapping is just the conservation aspect, like keeping their numbers under control to help those ground nesting animals.
Yep. Yeah, and we've had. I know I got a call last year from a farmer who had a big cornfield, and his house sits way above the corn. So when he looked out back, he could slowly see his corn folding in. And he said, I got a raccoon problem. And as long as in Michigan, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe I am. If a landowner says these animals are causing damage to my crops, we don't need any kind of permit, anything besides, we always have a small game license, but we can go take raccoons any time of year if they are causing damage.
Correct. That's the way I understand it. Yes.
Yeah. And that's how we've ran it for a little while, with a lot of people, a lot of where we hunt coyotes, a lot of them are crop farmers. A lot of them are cornfields or soybeans, but soybeans and corn always interchange. So it seems every other year they have a major problem with the raccoons. And I mean, there's so many of them. It feels like we've gotten very behind on population control on raccoons.
One reason for that, and Heather can probably attest to this too, is there aren't nearly as many people trapping them anymore as there used to be. And part of that reason is the decline in fur prices. As I mentioned to Heather earlier, I asked for Dad used to do that as an income. There's a lot of people in this country back in the day that was their primary source of income. If you ever watch the show Mountain Men, some of those guys, that's their primary income for the year is their trapping. And when fur prices suffer like that, especially if people down here, it's not so much out in the wilderness like up in Alaska and such, where they don't have another job they can just go to. So down here, it has to be worth your while, because you look at how much time and money you spend on fuel and traps and maintaining your line, and you have to travel that line every day. Like some of those guys on the Mountain Man show, they'll say they'll have 100 traps on a line.
Mhm.
And like in Michigan here, in the Lower Peninsula, you have to check those traps every 24 hours. And in the UP, it's every 48 hours. So if you have 100 traps out in a line, you're talking about a lot of travel time and time it takes to do that. So if you're not making any money on that, why would you do it? And like Heather mentioned earlier, I was talking to Rick over here. I don't know if you've ever dealt with Rick Ingalls. Heather, you know who he is?
I think I have him on my Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, he's the local fur buyer closest to me, and he still has raccoons last year that didn't sell.
Yeah.
And the ones that were selling were hardly anything. So guys that did it for money, they aren't doing it anymore. So you have a lot of people that got out of it because there just wasn't the money in it like there used to be.
Now, Kevin, did you say that down here you have to check your traps every 24, but in the UP it's 48?
Correct.
Does anybody make any sense out of that?
A lot more ground.
Yeah.
So you think people have more traps out in the UP than they do down here?
Longer lines.
Okay.
You have to think about, there's a lot more unpopulated wild terrain up there. And, there's a few guys I know that'll go up and trap every year in the UP, especially guys that want to trap bobcat. They will travel the UP because you're only allowed one cat down here, and then you're allowed another cat in the Upper Peninsula. So a lot of guys will go up to the UP. The cat population's a lot higher, and they'll spend, a week, a weekend, whatever. They'll run a trap line just for, cats for a week. But also you have, fisher, you have marten, you have beaver, otter, anything else in that same vein. So if you're trapping for all those species, you could be traveling a long ways. And as the snow gets deeper, it's a lot harder travel to get, maintain that trap line. So if I'm correct, I don't know if you remember, Heather, but yeah, it's 48 hours in the UP and 24 hours down here.
Yep.
I never knew there was a difference. I figured checking a trap line was the same the whole state.
Nope.
Well, that's interesting.
We actually are going to the UP this winter. We're going to go camping and trapping up there, so that'll be pretty fun.
What are you going to target?
We're going to go for bobcat, fisher, and marten. We're going to go the first week of December when all three are open. But we've never trapped up there before, so we're kind of just going in blind. My dad has a trailer he uses for goose hunting, so we're just going to bring the whole arsenal and just kind of go off what sign we see. So who knows, we might end up just going to the UP to trap raccoons. But hopefully we can find a spot where we at least can get on some bobcat or marten or fisher.
Kevin, as many times as we've been to the UP, I don't know that I recall ever seeing raccoons. Do you?
See them around the campgrounds a lot.
Yeah, but I don't
camp up there. You used to see them all around the campgrounds. But in terms of out in the wilderness, so to speak, I don't think we even ever seen any up where we usually go on that big ranch. Hardly any.
I think of skunks a lot, but not a whole lot of raccoons. That's interesting. Just gets me thinking a little bit.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what sign we see. We'll have our beaver and water trapping stuff along too.
So what all animals have you trapped successfully?
So we've got in raccoon and possum, and then mink, muskrat, otter, and beaver.
I have never seen a beaver in the wild. As many times as I've hunted by the rivers, I've never seen one.
No?
No, and
We-
I see pictures of them that people have trapped, and they're like, 30 pounds.
Yeah, they can get real big.
I think didn't Chuck Barron get one last year, the year before that was like 60, 70 pounds?
I don't know.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, he had a bad experience because he sent it out to Cannery and they screwed it up.
Oh,
Oh, no.
Mhm.
Oh, that thing.
I've seen beaver once or twice out in the wild. One time I was fishing a small lake up in the UP towards the middle of the Upper Peninsula. I think it was evening time, and I was actually wading out into the water, just top water fishing, and I had a beaver swim a circle around me. And once it realized I was there, it did the old tail slap thing on the water and took off. So that was really cool. But yeah, I haven't seen many in the wild. I see sign of them quite often, but you don't see a lot of them. I think they're nocturnal, aren't they, Heather?
They are. Yep. Yeah, they're mostly nocturnal.
I didn't know that either. You guys are teaching me all kinds of things tonight.
And right now, if I'm right, parts of the beaver are most valuable thing you can trap right now, the beaver caster.
Yep.
Beaver caster, last I heard, was selling for around what, $60 a pound? Or
Something
60,
like that. An
or
ounce.
60 an ounce.
Was it an ounce? I think it might have been an ounce. Yeah.
Yep.
Carl Roller talks about that. Beaver heat traps and selling the caster from them.
And
Yep.
and for people that don't know, it's amazing how many different things beaver caster is used for. It's
Oh, it
used
is.
everything from perfume to food.
Yep. It is.
That's weird.
I've never eaten it, so I don't know how good it is.
It's
Not on
weird.
purpose anyway.
It's weird the things that people have found uses for from stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how did you decide? All right, I'm gonna try
Right. I'm gonna mix this with some bread and we'll see how it tastes.
Somebody figured out how to milk a cow, and then that was good. So
Right.
Well, Heather, when you said also you're trapping mink and fisher and otter, right? Now otter,
Yeah.
you're only allowed what, 1 or 2 a year?
I believe you can get 2. It might even be 3 now because I know they changed, but it's only like 1 down in the lower part of the state, and then I think you can get 1 in the middle and 1 in the upper. So I think
Okay.
it might be 3 now.
And another thing for people that don't know, otter is another animal that you have to register with the state like bobcats.
hang
Yep.
on.
Yep. And Fisher and Martin, you have to
okay.
register.
Now, this has always been a sticking point for me with bobcats is they retain the skull. And I
Mhm.
think they do with otter as well, right?
They do. Yep.
With the martin and stuff too?
Yep. Yep. They keep all the skulls. They used to just keep a tooth.
Right, like
just a
bear.
skull. But yeah. Yep. They keep the whole skull now. So that's kind of a bummer because I like to save the skulls, but
Right. Yeah, same here. That's why I was really bummed when I got my cats. Is the same thing. You know, I wanted to keep a skull, so I want a European mount of it, and they're like,
right.
"No."
Yeah.
And I hear varying reports from different people. Some people say yes, you can get a skull back. When I checked my cat in, I asked the biologist there at the field office, and he said you can ask for one, but we won't guarantee you'll get one, and we won't guarantee it'll be yours.
Oh yeah.
So I
Yep.
have yet to get one back for the DNR.
Yeah. We have the
Get
same
one.
thing with our otter. What was
I
that?
I got one from Jeremy. He had one.
Oh, gotcha.
So because I couldn't get mine back, I got one from him. So at least I have one on my collection.
I never knew otters were down here near us, Heather.
Oh yeah.
Like the same riverbed that's back there where I told you to go try for coyotes has otters.
Yep.
Are otters nocturnal?
For the most part, though, they're most active at like twilight and dusk.
Now, another thing people don't know about otters, because they usually only look at them in the zoo and they're all cute and cuddly and they make cute noises, but otters are actually a pretty aggressive animal.
They are. Yeah,
I-
you don't want to get into anything
Yeah.
with one.
I've never seen one in person. I like I said, I knew there's some around, but I've never seen one of them either. I've only seen mink in the wild, I think once or twice. I've seen pine marten once or twice. And I've only seen fishers on our game cameras on our bear baits in the UP. We've had fishers cruise through by our bear baits. That's a cool looking animal.
It is. Yeah, they're gnarly too. You don't want to get into a fight with one of them.
Now they're a member of the weasel family, right?
They are. Yep.
Probably the biggest member of the weasel family in Michigan.
In Michigan, yes. Yep.
other than a wolverine if you happen to see one of them.
Yep.
So here's a question for you as a trapper. Have you guys ever encountered any badgers?
We have not. No, we haven't. I'd be excited to find one because we legally can trap them. So.
Yeah, that's another animal I've never seen in Michigan is a badger.
Yeah, we haven't either. Yep. Our first otter was last year, and we actually didn't see the otter. We were scouting our beaver spot because we found their lodge, their dam, and then a couple different feeding spots. So it was quite a hike to get back to where they were. But while we were looking at one of the beaver's feeding spots, I noticed piles of like fish scales, and it was a otter toilet. So then I was like, well, we got to set for otter here.
Nice.
So we had traps out. I can't remember if it was the first night or the second night. We he was 19.6 pounds and 45 inches. So it was that's a pretty good size otter. So he's at the taxidermist, my dad.
Very cool.
Your dad does a great job with taxidermy.
He does.
So Heather, what is your favorite animal to go after with traps?
Oh man, beaver are a lot of fun. Probably muskrat are right up there. It's just a lot of fun because you can catch quite a few of them, and they actually do a lot of damage to wetlands. So it's always nice to get those out of an area. So I really love catching them a lot. It seems kind of funny because they're just a little muskrat, People don't really picture them as anything special, but they have really soft furs. And
have you ever eaten muskrat?
I haven't.
I hear it's good.
That's on our menu, though. I hear it's good. Yeah. Yep.
Nice thing is too, rat prices were actually going up at the end of last season. So hopefully this year that trend carries on.
Yeah, we're hoping so too. I'd like to get enough to make like a whole blanket. They're so warm and like I said, just super soft.
When I was growing up, I remember going over to a friend's house and I had no idea what it was. I walked into his garage and the whole ceiling was all these, I didn't know what the heck they were. And I'm like, what is that? And he says, those are all muskrat. Well, his dad was quite the trapper, and that's what he used to target a lot was muskrat. And his whole garage was nothing but stretched out muskrat furs. And I'd never seen anything like that before.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you've never seen it, it's quite a sight.
It is.
How do both of you, since you both trap, how do you choose the right trap for species?
I go based on what someone else tells me. When I started off, I had a lot of help from my friend Dwight and a couple other guys. And then my first set of traps, I went to F&T and I just bought their coyote starter kit. And I think that came with 2.5, I think those were Dukes.
Oh.
And that's what I started with. And since then I've branched off to several other ones, got some Bridgers, some Dukes, some Victors. But that's basically as I was taking advice from somebody else, or just went with that starter kit from F&T based on coyotes.
For us, well, we started with raccoons, so we went with the dog-proof trap because we do a lot of public land too. They're just so easy to just stick in the ground and go, and you don't got to worry about catching someone's dog. But I guess going for coyotes, you kind of run into that. So we use like dog-proofs for raccoons. That's what we started with, but. Like for muskrats, we use number ones. I think we have a couple 1.5s. And then we have like 110 and 120 conibears. And then we have colony traps. And we use all those just based off of, each location. If we see a heavily used run, we'll put a colony trap in there, or in front of like huts, we'll do conibear, or on their feed beds, you do a 1.5.
So now for people that don't know anything about trapping, your traps for water animals are all lethal traps, correct?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Your footholds, if you're up on a feed bed, one could still be alive, but the trap itself is heavy enough to be where it would be lethal.
So now we just were at Rick's. He had a trapping demonstration from Jim Tate. Are you familiar with him?
Oh.
And he did a trapping demonstration. Of course, everyone there is already a trapper for the most part, but he did a demonstration to show, he says, the antis really think that trapping is so inhumane and cruel and blah, blah, blah. So he took, I think it was like a number 4 bridger, set it, stuck his hand in it. It's like, hey, see, it's not. And that's, I think that's a misconception from a lot of people, that foothold traps, especially, like Jim says, basically they equate to a set of handcuffs in terms of all they're designed to do is hold the animal.
Mm-hmm.
I think people have a big misconception about that.
They do. I think they envision, those big tooth traps that are going to crush bones and
right. The old bear traps with the spikes on it.
Yes, yeah. We don't want to crush their bones. Aside from, we don't want an animal to suffer.
Right.
But if they do break bones, they could easily just pull that skin off and run away. And then there's an injured animal running around. We don't want that. We just want to hold them until we can either dispatch or release if it's not a target animal.
Now, how often does that happen to you?
We've never really caught non-target species yet, other than like possum, but because they will also raid nests, we dispatch them usually.
Yep. I've only had one non-target species catch so far, and that was a domestic cat. And to say he was unhappy is kind of an understatement, but I don't think he had been in the trap for very long, and I was able to release him. And something that, from what I understand, is common with bobcats, apparently is common with domestic cats too. Once you release them from the trap, they don't leave. They sit there and growl at you, and they just hang around until they feel like leaving.
Yeah.
But this cat, it was a tabby cat. He was caught in one of my coyote sets. No damage to his paw. I released him. He sat there for a while. I just said, hey, chill out. I'll come back, reset my trap the next day. And he was fine. No harm, no foul. Might have been sore for a little bit, but that was it.
Yeah. One thing, too, if, you're not a trapper, but spend a lot of time in the woods, especially if you're like hunting grouse or woodcock or anything. I think it's really important for people who hunt with dogs to take time to familiarize themselves with traps. Because if your dog ever gets in one, you want to be able to release them quickly and easily.
I'm glad I haven't had to use my catch pole yet.
I've
seen plenty of videos of guys that had to release bobcat, wolf. I've even seen bear released with a catch pole. That was an incidental catch. I'm happy to say I haven't had to do that yet.
Yeah, me too.
Kevin, you just started trapping, what, 3 years ago now?
This will actually, I think, be my 4th year.
Okay. What reason, I'll ask you first, what reason did you have? Because you've always been a caller. When I first met Kevin Rott, it was calling predators and calling predators only. What made you start trapping them because
it was by request of a landowner, where it was a spot where they didn't allow any hunting. They were having a lot of problems with coyotes. They had a high population of them there. And he says, they don't allow hunting. Do you trap? I said, no, I really don't, but I'm not opposed to it. And I said, tell you what, I'll get the stuff and I'll trap for you. And I've been doing it ever since.
And Heather, you've basically grown up trapping your whole life, but is that what there had to have been something that kept you into it? What kept your interest enough to continue it with your own family?
Well, so I grew up hunting my whole life, but I only started trapping. This will be our 3rd season. So it's kind of been just something we've taken on as a whole family to learn. And so, we'd watch YouTube videos with the kids, and we've got the NTA trapping handbook. That's a really useful tool for, young kids and older people too. So, but yeah, the conservation aspect is really the main thing that got us into it.
Okay. And I assume you have landowners just like we do, that any animal that they ask you to take and you do so, it makes their day when you do what they need done to protect either their chickens or their crops.
Yeah, we've got a spot near Holland. We actually met the guy at the campground we stay at. There's cottages that we rent in the winter, and we had all our raccoons hanging out on the line while we were skinning and flushing and all that. And
right at the campground?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He drove fast and was like, what are you guys doing? We're like, oh, we're trapping. And he's like, well, all right, that's cool. And then the next year he came through again and saw us, and was like, hey, would you guys want to come trap my property? I've got a problem with raccoons and muskrats and he farms out near your house. They're really destroying his crops. So so that's when we started going for him. And such a small world and how you meet people.
Yeah, but it's cool. I mean, I've talked about it before, getting invited by these guys to come onto their land, for no other reason but to help them out getting rid of something that they don't have the time to get rid of. And when you do, they are so thankful that it makes I don't care if I spend $10,000 on gas every year, but if I make all these landowners happy by doing what they need done that they just can't do themselves, and you're willing to shake my hand and just let me onto your property, that makes it all worth it to me.
It does.
Want to lengthen your time in the field and shorten your scouting time? Not only does the HuntWise app show you property boundaries, landowners' names, and in some cases even their phone number, but using the app will show you the wind direction on the map of the place you want to hunt. And the HuntCast feature shows peak movement times for various species, including predators. Get the HuntWise app at www.huntwise.com, the Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store for only $59.99 a year for Pro or $119.99 a year for Elite. Use promo code OVERDRIVE20 for 20% off an annual membership.
So, Heather, I know you have 2 kids. Kevin's got a couple kids. I've got 3 kids. Heather, as much as we follow you and see what you do, I got to give it to you because you probably have a whole lot more patience than I do. You and your husband both, because you have your kids out with you all the time.
We do.
For somebody who's just, maybe just starting a family, how do you recommend getting your kids involved with you? Because I'll be honest, I feel like I might have done it the wrong way because I almost have always forced it. I feel like, you're not going to sit at home all day. You're not going to sit in front of the TV all day. Dad's going for a walk. Come on with me. And one of my kids has taken on to that. My oldest son, he will do it more willingly than the other 2, but I think I almost kind of learned a lesson with that one where you can't force it. But do you have any advice for how maybe somebody with a new family just starting out having kids, how do you break your family into that? I mean, how do you get your kids into it?
Yeah, so with things like waterfowl hunting and squirrel hunting, that's a really great way if you're a hunter to get your kids into it because they don't have to be so still and so quiet like with deer hunting. So we started with duck hunting. My daughter was 4 when we first started taking her, and then our son was 2 when he first started coming. But with squirrel hunting, I would have a baby carrier and I just put my son right on my back with some ear protection on, and we'd just go hike in the woods and shoot squirrels if we saw them. If we didn't, we just had a fun hike in the woods together. Yeah, so that was the main thing. My daughter, she's 10 now, and she's kind of like your kids, more wanting to stay home.
Yeah.
And so, we do let her stay home because it's my husband and I, so we don't have a lot of babysitters because our parents both work full time, and so we'll let her stay with friends sometimes, but other times we're like, you know what, you got to come. You don't have to fish, you don't have to actively hunt, but you're just going to come and spend time. So I think finding a good balance is good of letting them stay if they don't want to, but also sometimes being like, hey, just come along.
Yeah, it's time to get out from in front of the TV and out into the wilderness for a little bit. And I just talked about this, I think, last week when we talked with Teddy Pace on one of our last episodes. Some people are willing to bring their kid out and give them a phone or a tablet to play with.
Yep.
I'm not that parent. If you're going to be out there, we're out here for a reason. And I understand that that's probably the wrong way to get them into it. But at the same time, when I was growing up hunting and fishing, cell phones with games on them didn't exist.
Right. Yeah, that wasn't a thing.
No, I might have had a calculator that if you did everything just right, you could play the little snake game that chases around, around. but
Yeah.
I never had, all these racing games and all this stuff on a phone. So I would sit there for hours, bored out of my skull and freezing cold with nothing to do. And I guess, as Teddy said in that episode, it's not the same world we grew up in, and we got to adapt a little bit. But, I just feel like there's so much distraction already. When you're out there, just look around and realize how much there is to the world that you don't know about sitting in front of the TV.
Yeah, that's so true. We trying to find like a middle ground there. We've given them like our phones if they're really getting stir crazy, but we just want to stay out a little bit longer. We'll kind of use that for that. But yeah, for the most part, we try to just keep them involved without that.
Your daughter's sitting right behind you. Can I ask her, what's your favorite thing to do outside with your mom and dad?
I like them to just sit in their chairs so I can go out and climb trees.
I like to climb trees too, so I can't differ from you there. You've been trapping, you've been small game hunting. I've seen you guys with squirrels. I've seen you fishing. Do you have a favorite?
My favorite would probably be fishing.
Okay.
Because you have an option to be sitting on the boat or not. Because we have rod holders in our boat, so that way you can just put your rods in the rod holders and then you can sit. And Dad let me drive the boat once while I was sitting on his lap, and that was fun.
That's always good, though. You got to learn somehow, right?
Yeah. I almost caught a big crappie, but I set the hook too early.
I heard that crappie's lips are really, really soft, and if you set the hook too hard, you can pull them right off.
Oh,
yeah.
I never knew that, but I never caught crappie until this year.
Really?
Never. Not that I could ever remember. Well, that's cool. I'm glad that your mom and dad are getting you out there, because you know what? You are the future of what we do. Yeah. You got to carry it on in one way or another. Maybe one day you'll be teaching your own kids how to find their own plants to make their own wine out of.
Teach your kids how to make some wine?
Maybe, I don't know. Teach my kids how to make beer.
Oh,
beer.
There we go. That's what we need. All right. Well, Heather, I appreciate your time tonight. If anybody wants to follow along with you, where can they find Heather Iverson?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. My handle's Heather Iverson Outdoors. And then on Facebook, it's Heather Iverson Outdoors Woman. For some reason, Facebook wouldn't let me change my name. So my both are different names. But yeah, it's Heather Iverson Outdoors and Heather Iverson Outdoors Woman. Okay.
Kevin, anything from you before we go?
Nope. I just think it's great to see, the families get involved, because like you said, that's the future. As we have more and more pressure against us, that's what we need, is people with a wholesome viewpoint on it, a positive viewpoint on it, getting the kids involved. I mean, that's what's going to continue the tradition.
Definitely.
Yep. I agree. With that, Heather, I really appreciate your time, and your two kids in the background there that have sat quietly for the whole time. My daughter was down here for a couple minutes, but I appreciate your time. And as always, we appreciate everybody for listening, and we will talk to you at a later time.